very simple question. Does the government have any intention of meeting the reduction of 51% of carbon emissions or greenhouse gas emissions by 2030? Do you intend to do it? Did you ever intend to do it? Was it just something to give the Greens to say, well, there you go, you have your target, and then you say to the data centres, the big tech companies, big agribusiness, don't worry, we don't actually intend to meet this stuff. Because as Deputy Smith has pointed out, the EPA has indicated how miles off target we are. We're heading for like kind of best case scenario, if the government does the things that they promised to do, for 30% reduction or less than 30% reduction, rather than 51% reduction. And Antashka has pointed out that it is even worse because of a basic maths issue in terms of the kind of carry-on effect of the stuff not being done until now, not being taken into account in the EPA's calculations. Professor John Sweeney says the reality of the current emissions trajectory towards the end of 2025 means the carbon budget overshoot to be removed from the 2026 to 30 target is so significant that it will be much more difficult for the next government to stay within the legal requirement. This means that highly effective emergency course correction measures must be immediately enacted by the present government to limit the overshoot. What measures do you have in mind?
Thank you. Deputy President.
Thanks, Chair. I want to thank the deputies for their questions. Deputy Huron asked about progress on geothermal energy, and I'm familiar with one or two proposals in Dublin, actually in the southwest of Dublin, which have been around for a long time now, probably around 15 or 20 years, and they're very interesting and very exciting. I don't know enough about the technology to know to what extent they're viable, but the Deputy is correct in saying that we need to have a policy framework. I'm not sure what the timeline for that is at the moment, but I'll certainly check with Minister Ryan and get back to Deputy Huron as soon as I can. Just in relation to the nature law, despite the existence of habitats and birds directives for several decades, the EU, including Ireland, continues to see an alarming loss of biodiversity. And the nature law is all about arresting that and reversing it. Consideration of draft regulations is continuing at the moment. As deputies will know, there are different proposals. There's the European Commission proposal, the European Council proposal, which has just been adopted, and a draft proposal at the Parliament, which the Parliament has not yet adopted. There will be a trialogue, and I can say that I support the Council proposal, which was agreed by Minister Ryan yesterday. I believe it is realistic in terms of targets, in terms of flexibilities, in terms of compensation that will be provided to landowners. And I think it's particularly significant that the Council proposal yesterday allows for the fact that when it comes to renewable energy, that renewable energy installation, the grid, the wires, all of those things will be considered IROPI, will be considered effectively exempt from the nature law. And that totally proves that those who said that there wasn't a conflict between renewable energy and climate action and the Parliament's proposal got it wrong, whether it's MEP Wallace, Social Democrats, People for Profit or others. That provision would not be in the Council proposal adopted yesterday were there not genuine concerns about how an overly restrictive nature law could impact on climate action and renewables. And I'm glad to see that's in the Council proposal yesterday. But it now goes into trialogue, and as a government, we support what was agreed. Agreed yesterday. Sorry, on the EPA issue, the latest greenhouse gas emissions from the EPA highlight the challenge that Ireland faces in meeting its climate objectives. The EPA has projected that Ireland is on course to reduce emissions by 29% by 2030. However, if all of the unmodelled actions and as yet unallocated emission savings in the Climate Action Plan are included, then the EPA's projected emissions reduction would be 42%. While projections show that emissions are expected to decrease in almost all sectors, it is clear that Ireland has work to do to meet our challenges and legally binding emissions targets. Change is now underway across our economy and society to realign ourselves to a low-carbon future. Reducing emissions is now at the heart of our policies and sectors. It's essential that we quickly translate our high-level goals and plans to meaningful actions on the ground. We need to fully implement the actions of the Climate Action Plan of 2023 and strengthen additional measures needed to reach our targets. And I can confirm to the deputies that, of course, we intend to meet our 51% reduction target by 2023, and rather than treating industry as enemies, we're engaging with industry, and it's very interesting to meet firms like Diageo, for example, in the brewing sector, like Lilly in the pharma sector, and seeing how ambitious and how feasible their plans to meet net zero are, because they know it's in their economic interest to do so.